Hi, I'm Enchanting Nubian Net. Welcome back. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Today I'm going to share my thoughts on the Iryna Zarutska case, this horrible tragedy that could have been prevented. When 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska boarded the Charlotte area transit system train on August 22nd, she was just trying to get home. She was a Ukrainian refugee. A refugee, everyone. She had fled the war in her country and she had trauma from that huge, and it's still going on as we know. It's just a huge problem in her country, this horrible war that many people has passed away. Many people are faced with poverty. They don't have food, they don't have jobs, and so much more. So she was trying to rebuild her life in North Carolina, working multiple jobs, taking English classes, and dreaming of becoming a veterinary assistant. She had so much hopes and dreams, and she was planning and doing the work for this to come into fruition. But unfortunately, everyone, that night, her journey ended in horror, extreme horror. Surveillance footage shows when she was sitting down quietly when DeCarlos Brown Jr., the 34-year-old suspect, sat behind her. And without warning, without her doing anything, she didn't even see him. There was no interaction between any of them. He decided to poke her in the neck with his pocket ends with that tool. And Iryna collapsed on the train floor, and no passenger even intervened. So it is horrible, everyone, that no one intervened. I don't know, how many men were on that train, but because he had a weapon, many people are very fearful, and that's another reason why they did not. So unfortunately, she passed away right on the scene by herself, basically. So the suspect, he was arrested shortly after. So he was charged with first-degree M and later hit with federal charges for causing D, her unaliving on a mass transportation system. Now, everyone, his criminal history, it spans over a decade. Just imagine, this man is sitting on the train free. I'm sure he didn't even pay his fare. And he has this long history of causing harm to so many people. These are all the blatant warning signs. So these crimes, everyone, included armed robbery and multiple psychiatric crises. Okay? He had been in and out of jail and reportedly diagnosed with schizophrenia. So everyone, let's be clear. This tragedy was preventable. That's what I'll believe, and I'm not changing from that. Because DeCarlos Brown, he had 14 prior cases in Mecklenburg County, and he had been committed for mental illness. He had called 911 from a hospital earlier this year. Yet somehow he was still roaming free, armed with that weapon that he poked Iryna with, very unstable and unmonitored. No ankle monitor, nothing. So Iryna's family, of course, they are very heartbroken, devastated to learn about the passing of, their child, their loved one. They said that she came to America seeking safety, to this rich country seeking safety, and here we have, such indifference that many of us, including, of course, Iryna, was met with. Because both on that train and in the system, it allowed for DeCarlos Brown to be walking free. And this is what is happening to all of us here in the United States. So many people who have mental illnesses are not supervised at all. They're roaming around, they're on the subways back and forth in New York, because in New York you don't have to, the train doesn't have to stop at one point where everyone is needs to get off and then return where they have to pay their fare. They can ride back and forth for many hours. So many times in the morning going to work, you see so many people without homes, mental illness, who are sleeping on the train. There's nowhere for them to go. So let's talk about, YouTube family, this D penalty debate: justice or vengeance? So, should DeCarlos Brown face the D penalty? So, here are some arguments for the D penalty. There's premeditation and awareness, because DeCarlos Brown, he reportedly, and I saw this on the video footage, he changed his clothes after the attack. So, this suggests that he understood the gravity of his actions and tried to evade capture. It's not the behavior of someone completely detached from reality. Okay, that is my opinion, and I'm sure many of you have that same opinion as well. Because if you're clearly 100% out of your mind, you know, in order to be, you wouldn't be so calculated as to take off your shirt or your hoodie. There's also a pattern of violence, as we know, his long criminal record and repeated offenses. It does show a disregard for human life and public safety. No one can be safe around this man, not family and not people in the public. There needs to be public accountability. Iryna's M, ending with R, was not just a personal tragedy. It was a public failure. Let's call it like it is. So a strong sentence could send a message that the violent crime and on public transit and anywhere, you can be in a bank where this can happen, you can be in a supermarket, anywhere you are on the street outside of your home, it cannot be tolerated. We need to take a stance right now. Now, here's the argument on the flip side, everyone. Arguments against the D penalty. Many people will say, and yes, it is factual that he has some form of mental illness. So, DeCarlos Brown schizophrenia diagnosis, because he does have a diagnosis, it does complicate the moral and legal methods of dealing with this case. So, if he was in a psychotic state, many people would argue, was he truly capable of understanding his actions? There's also systemic neglect, because the state failed to provide adequate mental health care and supervision. All of the taxes of the people who are working in that state definitely should have been able to hold this man, take care of him, give him counseling, give him medication, um, guidance, make sure that he is safe and away from others. So, executing Mr. Brown might feel like punishing someone for being failed by the very institutions that were meant to protect everyone in society. Of course, Iryna. And there's also, of course, racial disparities, because we know that many people of color, especially an African American man with a mental illness, his case can sit at the intersection of, you know, the group of people who historically have been overrepresented on the D row. Can't say the word on YouTube. So this law, everyone, we have to think about, is it equitable? Okay, I believe that he needs to face very harsh accountability. And as an African American woman, I definitely feel deeply about this case. Iryna's story is extremely heartbreaking to me. She was a young woman. She was very hopeful and she was trying to rebuild her life in this country that promised safety. Her passing the M ending in R is definitely a strain on that promise. Okay, I don't know what it means to live with a mental illness, and many times we know that people who are mentally ill, they are criminalized as well instead of being healed or helped. But there were so many warning signs in this case. Okay, and we definitely need to have justice for Iryna as well as everyone else, because we need to be safe in our country. But I believe, as I mentioned earlier, that DeCarlos Brown should never walk free again. That is non-negotiable for me. So whether he passes away by lethal injection or if he lives his days out in a cell, okay, we need to make sure that he is held accountable for his actions. And also, Iryna's family deserves justice. The public also deserves answers. And if he does go to trial, he deserves to, voice out his, he needs to make sure that he tells his side of the story if he can do that. That he voices, what was on his mind and what was he thinking, his rationale for what he did, the crime that he did. It's a horror of his actions. But this is a wake-up call, everyone. Okay, but we need to prosecute, but we also need to prevent these things from happening. And this calls for the lawmakers, these politicians that we're paying, because they have to fund the institutions or the residences where people with mental illness, people who need help, people who are sick, they need to get this help because their lives affect other people when they make these irrational decisions to harm someone. No one should have to flee from a war only to be unalived on a train in America. It doesn't make any sense to me. So justice needs to be served. And DeCarlos Brown, he must get extreme accountability. Okay, so it's up to the state as far as what will happen. I know that Donald Trump definitely calls for the D penalty, and I'll listen out and find out what happens next on this story. We need to have justice. So please leave your comment below. I know some of you may not agree with me because he is diagnosed with schizophrenia. However, this man removed his shirt right away after he did that crime. Why did he remove his shirt? How did he know that he doesn't want to be caught by police and avoid accountability? So something is going on in his mind, and I don't believe that he's 100% fully unstable. That's my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I do hope that everyone, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I hope that everyone stays safe wherever you are. Keep your head on a swivel at all times. Anytime you leave your house, keep your head on a swivel. Be very observant. Thank you for watching.